Applause was deafening. 15,000 people on their feet, screaming, cheering, calling for one more encore. Thomas Anders stood center stage at Vienna's Stadthalle, June 14, 1986, taking his final bow. The smile on his face was perfect, professional, practiced. The wave to the crowd was exactly right. Everything looked flawless, but inside his chest something was breaking. His heart was racing, not from exertion, from something else, something wrong. His hands were trembling. He kept them clasped together so the audience wouldn't notice. His vision was starting to narrow, tunnel-like, the faces in the crowd becoming distant, unreal. He needed to get off stage. Now, he bowed one more time, waved, turned, walked toward the wings with measured steps, not running. Never let them see panic. Never let them know something is wrong. The moment he crossed into the shadows backstage, away from the lights and the crowd, Thomas's legs gave out. He stumbled, caught himself on an equipment case. Someone asked if he was okay. He didn't answer, couldn't answer. He pushed. Past them, down the hallway, toward his dressing room. Had to get there, had to get somewhere private, before it got worse. He made it through the door, closed it, locked it, and collapsed. Before understanding what happened in that dressing room, you need to understand the 6 months that led to it. Modern Talking's 1986 schedule had been insane, not just busy, inhumane. January through June, 23 countries, 67 shows. Countless television appearances, radio interviews, photo shoots, promotional events, record label meetings, every single day scheduled. No breaks, no rest, no time to breathe. Thomas Anders was 23 years old. At an age when most people are figuring out their careers, he was the voice of one of the biggest pop acts in Europe. Multi-platinum albums, #1 singles, millions of fans, everything he'd dreamed of, and it was killing him, not metaphorically. Literally, the human body isn't designed for this level of sustained pressure, the constant performance, the travel, the time zones, the hotels, the same questions. The same songs, the same smile for cameras, day after day, week after week, month after month. Thomas had started feeling it in March, a tightness in his chest during performances, a feeling like he couldn't get enough air. He'd ignored it, assumed it was fatigue, pushed through. By April, the tightness was constant, not just during shows, between them, in hotel rooms, on planes, lying in bed trying to sleep. He'd mentioned it to Dieter once, casually. "I'm feeling a bit run down, maybe we should take a few days off." Dieter had looked at him like he'd suggested canceling Christmas. "We can't take days off, we're booked solid, you can rest in July." July was 6 weeks away. Thomas had nodded, said okay, because what else could he say? The machine had momentum. You couldn't just stop it because the instrument was tired. That's how Dieter saw it. Thomas was the instrument, beautiful, valuable, essential. But still an instrument, not a person with limits, with needs, with a breaking point. By May, Thomas wasn't sleeping, not properly, 4 hours a night. Sometimes less, his mind racing, rehearsing tomorrow's performance, reviewing yesterday's mistakes, calculating how many more days until July, until rest, until he could stop pretending everything was fine. He lost weight, not intentionally, just stopped being hungry. Food felt like another obligation, another thing to fit into the schedule. Eat, perform, sleep, repeat. His friends had noticed, called, asked if he was okay. He'd said yes, of course. Just busy living the dream. They'd believed him because he sounded convincing. He'd learned to sound convincing. That was part of the job. Convince everyone you're fine, even when you're not. June 14, 1986. Vienna, the 64th show of the tour. Thomas had woken up that morning feeling different. Not tired, beyond tired, hollow, like he was watching himself from outside his body, going through motions without actually being present. The sound check had been mechanical, technical. His voice worked, hit the notes, but felt disconnected from him. like it belonged to someone else. Dieter had noticed. "You sound flat, what's wrong?" Thomas had wanted to say everything, wanted to explain that he couldn't do this anymore, that something was breaking inside him, that he needed help. Instead he'd said, "Just warming up, I'll be fine for the show." And he had been, for the show, 90 minutes of perfect performance, every note correct, every move choreographed, every smile timed. The audience had loved it, had no idea that the person on stage was barely holding together. That behind the professional exterior was someone drowning, that the applause they were giving was for a performance in more ways than they knew. Then he'd walked off stage, and everything had fallen apart. Thomas sat on the floor of his dressing room, back against the wall, trying to breathe, but his lungs wouldn't work properly. Each breath felt insufficient, like he was suffocating. His heart was hammering, so fast, too fast. He could feel it in his throat, in his ears, pounding. His hands were shaking violently now. He looked at them, couldn't make them stop, couldn't control his own body. The room was spinning, or he was spinning, he couldn't tell. The walls felt too close, the air too thick. He was going to die. He was certain. This was a heart attack, had to be. 23 years old, and his heart was giving out because he'd pushed too hard, worked too much, ignored every signal his body had sent. He tried to stand, to get to the door, to call for help, but his legs wouldn't support him. He slid back down the wall. Tears were streaming down his face now. Not from sadness, from pure terror. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except feel the overwhelming certainty that he was dying alone in a dressing room in Vienna. That's when someone knocked on the door. Dieter Bohlen had been looking for Thomas. The encore had been good, the crowd enthusiastic, but Thomas had disappeared immediately after. Usually he'd stay backstage, talk to crew, decompress. Tonight he'd vanished. Dieter had checked the usual places. Catering, the green room, finally tried the dressing room. Knocked, no answer, knocked again. "Thomas, you in there?" He heard something, a sound, not quite a word, not quite a cry. He tried the handle, locked. Thomas opened the door, nothing, more sounds, breathing, wrong breathing, panicked. Dieter's irritation shifted to concern. "Thomas, I'm going to get someone to unlock this. Are you okay?" A voice, barely, "Can't breathe." Dieter didn't wait, found security, got the master key, opened the door, and found Thomas Anders curled on the floor, shaking. Gasping, eyes wide with terror, makeup streaked with tears. The perfect pop star reduced to someone clearly, visibly, desperately not okay. Dieter had seen a lot in the music industry. Drunk performers, drug problems, meltdowns, but he'd never seen Thomas like this. Thomas was always composed, professional, in control. This was something else. This was someone breaking. "Thomas, what's wrong? What happened?" Thomas tried to speak, couldn't form words. Just shook his head, gasped. Dieter looked around, saw no injuries, no obvious cause. "Are you hurt? Did someone hurt you?" Thomas managed to shake his head. "No, not hurt, dying, his heart." Dieter knelt down, looked at Thomas closely, saw the terror in his eyes, the absolute conviction that something catastrophic was happening. He'd seen this before, not in Thomas, but in someone else. Years ago, a cousin who'd had panic attacks. This looked the same. "Thomas, listen to me. I think you're having a panic attack. You're not dying. I know it feels like you are, but you're not." Thomas didn't believe him, couldn't believe him. This felt too real, too physical, too overwhelming to be just panic. Your heart is racing because you're panicking. Your breathing is wrong because you're panicking. But you're not having a heart attack. You're having a panic attack. Do you understand? Thomas stared at him, wanting to believe, unable to. Dieter made a decision. He sat down on the floor next to Thomas, not hovering, not standing over him, sitting with him. "Okay, we're going to breathe together. Watch me. In, out, in, out. Just match my breathing. Don't think about anything." Else just breathe with me. Thomas tried. It was hard. His body wanted to hyperventilate, wanted to gasp, but he focused on Dieter, on the steady rhythm. In, out, slowly, very slowly. The panic started to recede, not gone, but manageable. His heart was still racing, but less violently. His hands still shaking, but less intensely. After several minutes, he could speak. I thought I was dying. I know, but you're not. You're okay. Your body just hit a limit, and this is how it's telling you. Thomas wiped his face, embarrassed now, ashamed. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. I've never. Don't apologize, this isn't your fault. They sat in silence, both on the floor, Dieter still breathing deliberately, Thomas following. Finally, Thomas spoke. I can't do this anymore. Do what? This, all of it, the tour, the schedule, the constant performing. I'm so tired, Dieter. I'm so fucking tired. Dieter had never heard Thomas curse, never heard him sound this exhausted, this defeated. Why didn't you say something? I did in April. You said we couldn't take time off. Dieter remembered the casual mention. He dismissed it. Assumed Thomas was just complaining, not actually struggling. That was different. I didn't know it was this bad. How would you know? You never ask. You just schedule, book, plan, decide. I'm just supposed to show up and sing like a machine, but I'm not a machine, Dieter. I'm a person, and I'm breaking. The words hung between them. Harsh, true, Dieter sat with them, really heard them. For 3 years he'd been treating Thomas as the instrument that delivered his songs, the voice that made his production work. He'd been careful with the voice, made sure it was warmed up, rested between takes, protected, but he'd never thought about the person attached to the voice, about what this schedule was doing to Thomas as a human being, about the cost of success measured in mental health and physical exhaustion. You're right, Dieter said finally. I've been treating you like a machine, like the voice is all that matters, and I'm sorry. Thomas looked at him, shocked. Dieter didn't apologize, ever, didn't admit fault, didn't show vulnerability. I've been so focused on the success, on maximizing the momentum, on not wasting the opportunity, that I stopped seeing you as a person. I saw you as the voice, as the performer, as the asset, not as Thomas, not as someone who gets tired, who has limits, who needs rest. Thomas didn't know what to say. This level of honesty from Dieter was unprecedented. I'm going to fix this, Dieter continued. Not just for tonight, for everything. We're canceling the rest of the tour. We can't. We're booked. The contracts. I don't care. You just collapsed. You thought you were dying. We're canceling. I'll handle the labels, the promoters, the lawyers. You're done. You need to rest. Actually rest. Not just a few days, weeks, months if necessary. Thomas felt something release in his chest. Permission. Permission to stop, to rest, to not be okay. Thank you, he whispered. They sat on the floor for another 20 minutes, not talking much, just being two people who'd worked together for 3 years, finally seeing each other as human, as fallible, as limited. Eventually they stood. Dieter helped Thomas to the couch, got him water, made calls to management, to the label, to promoters, canceling, explaining, dealing with the professional fallout so Thomas didn't have to. Thomas watched him. This version of Dieter he'd never seen, protective, caring, putting Thomas's health above the tour, above the revenue. Above the momentum. It was new, and it changed something fundamental between them. When the calls were done, Dieter sat down. I've arranged for you to fly home tomorrow. No press, no public statement, just quiet exit. Take time, as much as you need. We'll figure out the rest later. What about modern talking, the momentum, the career? Fuck the momentum. The career doesn't exist without you. Healthy you, not this, not you collapsing. We build slower, more sustainably, or we don't build at all. Thomas nodded, too exhausted to argue, too relieved to question. That night, Dieter Stayed with Thomas, didn't leave him alone, made sure he ate something, made sure he could sleep, sat in a chair while Thomas lay on the couch, just present, just there, in case the panic came back, in case Thomas needed someone. The dynamic had shifted completely, from producer and performer, from boss and employee, to something more human, more equal, more real. The next morning, Thomas flew to Munich, to his apartment, to silence, to rest. Slept for 16 hours, woke up disoriented, remembered Vienna, the collapse, the panic, Dieter's response. It felt surreal, like something that had happened to someone else, but his body remembered the exhaustion, the burnout, the breaking point. He spent the next 3 weeks doing nothing, actually nothing, no music, no interviews, no obligations, just existing, sleeping, eating when he was hungry, walking when he felt like it, reading, thinking. Slowly, very slowly, feeling human again. Dieter called once a week, not to pressure, not to schedule, just to check in. How are you feeling? Do need anything, take all the time you need. It was strange, this version of their relationship, based on care rather than productivity, on health rather than output, on humanity rather than professionalism. 6 weeks after Vienna, Thomas felt ready to talk about what happened, about what it meant, about whether modern talking could continue and how. Dieter came to Munich. They met at Thomas's apartment, informal, personal, not at a studio or label office. How are you? Dieter asked. Better, actually better. I needed this, more than I knew. Good, I'm glad. They talked for 3 hours about the breakdown, about what had led to it, about how neither of them had noticed how unsustainable the pace was, about how success had blinded them to the cost. I want to continue, Thomas said, but differently. We need boundaries, schedules that are humane, time off built in. Not just worked until we break and then scramble to fix it. Dieter agreed. I've been thinking about this, about how we were operating. It was short-term thinking. Maximize now, worry. Sustainability later, but there is no later if you burn out, if we destroy you in the process. They made new rules, new commitments, maximum shows per month, mandatory days off, no more than 6 months of heavy touring per year, real vacation time, built into contracts, protected, non-negotiable. And if I say I need a break, Thomas added, you listen, you don't dismiss it, you don't tell me to push through, you trust that I know my limits. Agreed. Thomas pushed back, respected the boundaries they'd established, checked in about mental state, not just vocal state, saw Thomas as a whole person, not just a voice. The music didn't suffer, if anything it improved. Thomas performed better when he wasn't exhausted, when he had energy, when he felt human rather than mechanical. The audiences didn't notice the schedule was lighter, they just experienced the shows, and the shows were good, maybe better than before. Because the person on stage was present, not just going through motions, actually there, actually enjoying it, actually sustainable. Years later, after modern talking had broken up and reformed and broken up again, both men would point to Vienna as the turning point. Not in their careers, in their relationship. Dieter would say, that's when I stopped seeing Thomas as my instrument and started seeing him as my partner. When I realized that taking care of him wasn't just decent. It was essential, Thomas would say. That's when I learned to advocate for myself, to set boundaries, to understand that success isn't worth destroying yourself for. That I could say no, that I could have limits, that being human wasn't weakness. The panic attack itself became a private story. They didn't share it publicly, didn't use it for sympathy or publicity. It was theirs, a moment of genuine crisis that had led to genuine growth, a breaking that had led to rebuilding, better, stronger, more sustainable. Thomas never had another panic attack that severe, but he recognized the warning signs now, the tightness, the racing heart, the disconnection, and he knew to stop, to rest, to take care of himself before it got that bad. And Dieter learned to watch for those signs too, to check in, to make space, to remember that the person was more important than the performance, that protecting Thomas's health was protecting modern talking's future. The entertainment industry hasn't changed much since 1986. The pressure is still immense, the schedule's still brutal. Young artists still pushed to the breaking point, still treated as products rather than people, still expected to perform no matter the cost. But for Thomas Anders and Dieter Bohlen, Vienna changed everything. It taught them that success built on human destruction isn't sustainable, that caring for mental health isn't weakness, that boundaries aren't limitations, they're survival. That night on the dressing room floor when Thomas couldn't breathe and Dieter sat beside him counting breaths, they learned something the industry doesn't teach. That partnership means seeing each other as human, as limited, as deserving of care, not just when it's convenient. When it's necessary, and that sometimes the most important thing you can do for your career is stop, rest, heal, live, not as a machine, not as an instrument, as a person. That's what Vienna taught them, at significant cost, through genuine crisis. But the lesson stuck, changed how they worked, how they related, how they measured success. Not just in platinum records and sold-out shows, but in sustainable careers and mental health and the ability to look back without regret. Without the haunting question of what you destroyed to get where you are. Modern talking's legacy is complicated, great music and personal. Conflict, commercial success, and partnership struggles, but Vienna gave them something valuable. The understanding that people matter more than products, that health matters more than momentum, that caring for each other isn't just moral, it's practical. It's the only way to survive this industry long-term, intact, still human, still whole. That's the real story of the night Thomas Anders collapsed backstage. Not just the breakdown, the rebuilding, not just the crisis. The care that followed, not just the mistake of working someone to breaking, the wisdom of stopping, listening, changing. That wisdom is rare in entertainment, rare anywhere. But on June 14, 1986, in a Vienna dressing room, two people learned it. The hard way, the real way, the way that stuck.